So I don't know if you've ever ordered anything from Amazon, but you order like 10 things and they all come in one big box, one at a time. That's what's happening to Angel Tree. Someone adopts a family of 5, they buy 30 things. We receive 30 large boxes with tiny little bitty things in the box. So, yeah. So anyways, the next step will be next week where all of the sweet angels come to pick up all of their stuff. Of course, by then we would have broke down some of the boxes, condensed all of their stuff. And we're going to do a drive-through for pickups out at the Global Mall. If anyone is on this call that's looking for something fun and exciting to do, and you want some volunteer hours, we have some more volunteer slots readily available, and it's high energy. So you'll get your workout in all in one.
All right. Well, thank you, April, and good luck with that. You guys, I know every year is a challenge, but this year is especially so. So I appreciate that. It looks like we have someone who is here to monitor our IT. Thank you very much for jumping on with us so we can call this meeting to order. So Mark, would you move for us to begin our electronic meeting?
I move that the items on the meeting agenda constitute essential business of this council. Meeting electronically is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans, considering the COVID-19 outbreak, and any rule conflicting with governor's executive order permitting electronic meetings be suspended.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Wendell. Abigail, would you please do a roll call vote and also use that as our attendance, please?
Yes. And before we do that, Stephanie, can I ask you to move Elena Boyer and Alex Smith up to the panelists? And I think Treva, if she's still on there, I can't get my list to scroll down anymore, but anyone who's got a name, if we can move them up to the panelist list.
With Treva, because she's a caller, I'm not able to move her up, but I will unmute her so that she will be able to speak.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then if you can also state any conflicts of interest that you have while we do the roll call.
Thank you, Abigail. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Elena Boyer.
Here and yes.
April Calvin.
Present and yes, and the conflict is that the Salvation Army receives CLC and ESG funds.
Thank you. Ashley Oswald. Not present. Ryan Ellis. Not present. Alex Smith.
Here, yes, and no conflict.
Thank you. Michelle Hall. Not present. Brian Hassett. Not present. Dawn Diener. Not present. Norman Humber.
Here, yes, no conflicts.
Catherine Knowles.
Present, yes, no conflicts.
Sheila Decker.
Present, yes, and conflict of interest noted for, I am a contract vendor with Salvation Army.
Thank you. Mark Overlock.
Present, yes, and my wife works with Catholic Charities, and to the extent they get money from HUD or this organization, I have a conflict.
Mary Catherine Rand.
Present, yes, and I work for the Mary Parish Center, who receives ESG and COC funding.
Beth Shin.
Present, yes, no conflict.
Freddie O'Connell. I'm sorry, Freddie, can you say that one more time so that it's clear?
Sorry, present, no conflicts.
Thank you. Aaron Evans. Not present. Sandra Sepulveda, not present. Will Connolly,
Present, yes, and Park Center receives ESG and Metro funding.
thank you. Paula Foster,
Present, and I approve the motion. My wife is staff at Nashville Cares, and they receive ESG funding.
Laura Bermudez,
Present, yes, no conflict.
Vicky Batcher,
Present, no conflict that I know of.
and do you agree with the virtual motion?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Wendell Seagroves,
Present, yes, no conflict.
Jeff Gibson, not present. Charles Strobel, not present. And Tom Turner, not present. And that's everybody.
All right, thank you very much. We are going to take a moment to remember those that we have lost of late in our community. I'd like to read their names, and then we will have a moment of silence for those. All right. Michael Blind Mike Hargrove, Steve Sandman Hopper, Tony Country Collins, Corey James Tedlock, Leroy John Finney, Christopher Seward, Clarence Vinying, and Tim Smith. Okay, thank you all very much for that. All right, we will jump right into our agenda this morning. Thank you all for your patience as we are a little bit behind, so we're going to try to move through as quickly as possible. I want to respect everyone's time. Our first agenda item is Story of Progress. Who is that?
Paula, that would have been you, but I have prepared one. Hold on a second. So,
okay, then. Thank you.
I actually went to what we wanted to do, and the executive committee has talked about that, to really set the tone on what this is about, what this work is about, and how people are being helped. So I actually focused on the fairgrounds and asked Joseph Parker. He sends me progress reports and things like that. So this gentleman needed housing. He moved from Chicago to stay with his relatives in Nashville. However, their lease did not permit an additional person to stay at that apartment. We see that a lot. And so he has been asked to leave. He went to Nashville Rescue Mission earlier this year. And then when the COVID pandemic happened, he was one of the people that was transferred and volunteered to go to the fairgrounds social distancing shelter. Metro Social Services is engaging with everybody on housing planning and housing navigation. He needed his birth certificate and social security card to be replaced. Social Services actually has a van that transport people to the different offices and get things done and help them. So he was driven to Social Security office and to ensure he could obtain those documents. And he has now been approved for Fallbrooks Apartments, and his housing navigator at Metro Social Services will assist him with the move in shortly, hopefully this month. So that's our story of kind of success.
Thanks, Judy. And as we move on, we would love to be able to know from any of you guys who are doing direct care things that are happening as a result of funding in the community or new initiatives in the community. We're going to be talking about a little bit about a new initiative today, I believe, and hopefully we'll see some of the fruits of our labor. And I think that that's incredibly important for us. We can get bogged down in trying to do things and never actually see what happens because of the things that we do. So hopefully this will give a little bit of a window into that here and there, both the good, the bad, and the everything. Okay. So next we are going to have our Homeless Impact Division and MBHA updates. Judy, you're going to start that, or Susie? And then I think Rachel Cook has something for us on data.
Yeah, I'm going to start it real quickly. So one of the things, and Abigail, get ready because I'm going to ask you. So one of the things I wanted to start with is a charter document update is underway. And as you all know, we at MHID have received a HUD grant for to improve HMIS capacity, and as part of that, HUD has reviewed our charter that we have adopted, and there has been some feedback, and it's just the section of HMIS that they want us to improve. And I'm going to ask, and you probably saw an email go out from Susie this morning, and if you haven't seen it, you will, that we have gone into public comment period for that section around HMIS, and Abigail will go over the changes that they wanted us to make sure that our document is in compliance with the Hearth Act governance charter. Abigail, if you...
Can you hear me? Okay. We had 4 main things that needed to be updated. Well, the first was that we needed to specify that the Continuum of Care is who from the Continuum of Care is responsible for entering into an operational agreement with the HMIS lead. We actually already had that in there and think that they possibly just missed it. So that piece we're keeping the same, but we're highlighting it for their review. And that was that there would be an agreement between the Homelessness Planning Council and then Metro Homeless Impact Division as the HMIS lead, or whoever becomes the HMIS lead in the future. We had to indicate which entity serves as the HMIS lead. So we don't have that still in our charter, but we have referenced that it is indicated in the HMIS policies and procedures, which they stated was okay to do. We just had to make sure that we had that reference in there. We had to clarify that the HMIS policies and procedures have a review process and how often that occurs. So I worked with Rachel Cook and talked to her a little bit about that and put some language to do at minimum every 3 years with the vote for the HMIS lead. So it can certainly be updated more often as needed, but at least at minimum it will be reviewed and updated. We had to identify any information that can be found in supporting documents. So I have added a piece at the very end to refer people to the HMIS policies and procedures for any further rules or staff requirements, things like that. And then we had to note if there were any HMIS user fees, and if so, what that policy and procedure is. Currently, we do not charge HMIS user fees to our nonprofit partners. If we begin to have to do that, because thankfully we have more partners coming on board, and we are close to maxing out on the number of licenses we have available to us through our current contract. But if we have to start going down that road, certainly we will be updating that policy and procedures and making sure the community is a part of that discussion and change and what that looks like. So I put a little bit of a clause at the very end of the section, and all of these edits can be found on page 13 and 14 of the charter, which Susie sent out this morning.
Thank you, Abigail. Thank you, Judy. Susie, do you have more?
No, Judy? Yeah, we have. It's like, so One of the things I wanted to, we're really focusing, and you're going to hear more about the housing search later on, but it really impacts outdoor homelessness. I have cautiously optimistic news about, especially the Jefferson Street Bridge, that there's already some movement with people being on their way to housing or really intensely working on that. But I just overall, the situation in outdoor homelessness is just not good. We are reflecting what we see across the nation, that a lot of people will not go to the shelters. So at this point, keeping people warm where they are is an essential, because they will, because of COVID, they're just not comfortable going indoors. So we have overall, we have not an inkling that there's a huge surge in overall numbers, but definitely more people have moved outdoors. So we see outdoor homelessness up. Also, most of the complaints Metro get is around trash. So if you're out there, have trash bags with you and encourage people to pick up their trash. It is huge when there's not constant complaints about homeless, encampments, and it's triggered by trash. So I'm trying to set up, I am setting up next week a coordination call with Metro departments to talk about what we can do more proactive, coordinated way. And then I get increasing questions about what will it take to end homelessness in Nashville. So that's kind of my segment to give it over to Rachel and really talk about what HMIS does. We really need to know what we need to do. We need to know and have the full picture. So Rachel, if you can take it away. Stephanie, if you could give Rachel Cook the presentation ball, that will be very helpful. So she can actually, we want to start giving you more data and understanding what HMIS actually does and can do when it's fully functional and what we're working on. Thanks, Rachel, if you can.
Thank you. Yes, I'm going to pull up a couple of slides. Let's see. All right. So good morning. Again, my name is Rachel Cook. I'm HMIS Administrator here at the Homeless Impact Division. Many of you are familiar with HMIS, but some of you may not be. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about some high-level information about what is in HMIS, how we're kind of working toward growing our capacity, and then some of the information that we're able to present out on today. So very basic, what is HMIS? HMIS stands for Homeless Management Information System, and it's a web-based software application that serves as the primary database for projects intended to prevent and end homelessness here in Nashville. So HMIS, iterations of HMIS are across the country in every continuum of care. Every COC is required to manage their own iteration of HMIS. It's a locally administered data system, so everyone kind of runs their own, and there are several different like software vendors who create this product that communities utilize to analyze their client level homelessness data. And ultimately, HMIS is administered through the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development, and they utilize that data to look at what homelessness looks like across the country and in different communities, and then annually report back to Congress on those national numbers. So what is HMIS used for? So HMIS data is used to report back to funders. So program level reporting via HMIS is required by several federal and state funders. Sorry, that's my dog chiming in. Programs that receive federal funding from either HUD or the VA, HHS, several other funding sources are required to submit their data in the format that is produced by HMIS. And so they are entering their data for those reporting requirements. HMIS also allows us to assess community-wide responses to homelessness. So that individual program data that's entered by all of our participating agencies can be aggregated to look at trends such as characteristics of people experiencing homelessness, lengths of time homeless, returns to homelessness, things like that. HMIS also helps our community to facilitate service delivery. So we hear, you may have heard a lot about coordinated entry. Our coordinated entry process here in Nashville also lives in that HMIS system. And coordinated entry priority lists and by name lists are maintained using HMIS data. And then ultimately at the highest level, HMIS is used to support research and advocacy efforts. Like I mentioned, that aggregate data is used at the national level to assess the state of homelessness in the US and the country's response to it. So what are we doing here in Nashville with HMIS? Lots of hardcore capacity building right now. You may have heard about a year and a half ago, we received a capacity building grant from HUD. And this grant has provided technical assistance from HUD that's been super helpful to our team in creating our governance documents, getting everything up to speed after becoming the HMIS lead. We also have been working toward making our system not just compliant with what is required, but also a fully functional system. Something that we're continuously working toward is that magic number, that unduplicated annual numbers of people experiencing homelessness in Nashville. So that's what we're working toward. Some steps that we've made are that in 2018, or 2019, I think, the HMIS lead, the Homeless Impact Division, published a new HMIS policies and procedures manual that positioned the system to work toward secure data sharing for the first time in our COC. So a little bit more about data sharing. This past summer, in August, actually, this body passed our new client release of information that was produced by the HMIS Oversight Committee that has allowed clients to consent to their data being securely shared with other HMIS participating agencies for the first time. So this is really huge, really big step. About a year and a half ago, the HMIS lead hired an independent consultant to evaluate our community's HMIS. You may remember a survey going out a year ago, last summer, and data sharing, or what some refer to as an open system, opening the system, sharing that data between participating agencies, was the #1 requested feature. It's a very common practice in other cities, other communities, and implementing that feature in our system this summer has already made a huge difference. In addition to that release of information, we also put out an updated participating agency agreement, which has allowed us to resume onboarding new participating agencies in HMIS, and we've onboarded about 10 new agencies since August. Okay, so now the fun stuff. This document can be sent out later, but we have put together a look at the agencies and projects that are currently participating in our HMIS. These are divided by project type, and then I'm not sure if you can see the very top of my screen here, but oh, there we go, funding source. So really quickly, the different project types in our HMIS that we look at the data for things like our annual reporting to HUD, and these reports back to the community that we were able to start sharing, look at several different project types. So we have rapid rehousing projects, street outreach projects, emergency shelter projects, homelessness prevention, transitional housing, and permanent housing. These are the main ones. There are also a handful of supportive services only projects, and then also our coordinated entry process. So I have some numbers here divided by project type. Again, this is just the data that's in HMIS. So we're still working on increasing coverage to make sure that all the great work that's happening in Nashville is being captured in this way so that we're able to report the full picture. But we have information about demographics, where folks were before entering into programs, how long it's taking people to get housed, things like that. So for rapid rehousing, we have tons of new rapid rehousing projects thanks to the ESGCB funding. Street outreach, we're working on cleaning up that data. A lot of our street outreach providers have utilized the coordinated entry process as a way to track their interactions with clients over the past several years, especially before we had that secure data sharing. So we are in the process of ramping up our street outreach data collection, emergency shelters as well. We have just a couple of our smaller emergency shelters that utilize HMIS. So again, this isn't the complete picture, but does have a look at the clients who are being entered. Homelessness prevention clients. I'm going kind of quickly through this, but I'd be glad to share this or answer any questions about these later. Transitional housing and permanent housing programs. We also have a website. It's hmisnashville.weebly.com with all of our documents linked and some of our reports and things like that that I would love for everyone to take a look at when you have a chance. We're glad to answer questions, and we look forward to using this time in future meetings to continue to report out on HMIS data and continue to bring this to the forefront so we can keep building our system. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Rachel. Judy, does your group have anything else for us this morning?
No, we're good right now.
All right. Thank you so much. Susie, do you have any updates for us?
Yeah, just a few. I just wanted to start by saying thank you so much. Can you hear me?
I'm sorry, Freddie, did you have a question?
I just wanted to jump in real quickly and say
Sure.
Working with Rachel and almost every month and have for the past couple of years, and it's great to see. I do think storytelling matters sometimes, and it's great to see how much they have put into compiling not just the work that empowers, but why the work we've been doing in the HMIS Oversight Committee matters. So thank you to Rachel and Shanley for their dedication on this. And the HMIS Oversight Committee, honestly, got to thank the committee members because it is a dedicated group that has spent hours on it. Getting really getting to the point where we can turn Rachel and Shanley loose and get the and so we're excited now to be working on increasing the number of participating agents. Thank you.
Thank you, Freddie. I think that was incredibly well said and well-deserved accolades to the HMIS folks and the Homeless Impact Division. Appreciate that. Any other comments or questions for Rachel before we move on to Susie?
Yeah, I've got one, maybe, Paula, if that's okay.
Sure will.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. Ibid Freddie on just the good work. It's great to hear about the release of information and just onboarding new agencies and whatnot. Sharing info too. I think we're doing that as well. So wanted to ask, it's totally okay if you don't know this off the top of your head, but just the percentage of shelter beds in our system, how many, what's the percentage in HMIS right now of emergency shelter?
Yeah, so I don't know an updated number with the new COVID relief shelter since that's being entered, but the last time, based on the last housing inventory count and point in time count, I believe it was 6% of emergency shelter beds and less than 1% of adult emergency shelter beds. Is that right, Susie?
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. I had another question, but anyway, just appreciate the reporting. Thanks a lot.
All right, thank you, Will. Anyone else?
I had one. Rachel, can you show that email address again, or that website where we can get all that information and that beautiful presentation you did? I love the information from it.
You will also, I will send out the entire report with the monthly report as well.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right, Susie, take it away.
Well, I think that everybody else has said thanks, but again, to Rachel and Shanley for all their work, to Sally and to Hannah, working on the coordinated entry and getting all of that stuff sort of integrated with HMIS, and then to all of the agencies who are working so hard on entering this data. It's not fun, it's not easy, but once it's entered into this system and pullable and reportable, it's going to tell us, it's going to give us so much bigger picture of homelessness and so much richer data that we need to kind of make some planning decisions. So kudos to the HMIS staff, but also to the agencies who are working really hard to enter this data. We just need to keep it up. Regarding the notice of funding availability for the Continuum of Care competition, there is no news at this point. Again, we are all pinning our hopes on Congress approving some sort of legislation or stimulus bill that makes the COC competition not competitive and simple renewal process. More on that as I get it. Regardless, I did gather the Continuum of Care grantee agencies together last week virtually, and we went over some of the basics of a regular competition and perhaps what to expect this year. And they have all pulled, I think most of them have pulled an annual performance report for the year that HUD will judge us on, should there be metrics looked at this year. And then Carrie Dietz, who is the chair of the Performance Evaluation Committee, who the committee responsible for rating and ranking those projects that get submitted, she described that rating and ranking process. So it was a good start, and I'll be gathering the data from those reports to see how their performance measures looked last year. And I'd be glad to present that at a future meeting if need be. There will be a Continuum of Care general meeting next Thursday, December 17th. We are going to bring up those minor changes that are related to HMIS to the charter. But the main meat of the meeting is going to be Meg Fowler-Green from the Human Relations Commission, sort of teeing us off for next year in a focus on equity and trying to make the system more equitable as it relates to a variety of different things. She has a great presentation on historic discrimination in the city. And I believe all of you all are on the listserv, so I'll be sending that agenda out and I welcome you to join in. And then the point in time count, or the PIT count, is scheduled for a go, the unsheltered count. Rachel will be working really hard on gathering the typical shelter stats. But the point in time count led by Jaha Martin of the VA, and then Troy at MHID helps to staff that committee. The committee is going to do the unsheltered count. We're gathering our assorted teams out there and team leads, going to kind of adapt it for COVID times. So there will be no great meeting at the mission, as limited contact between volunteers and homeless people who are sleeping outdoors, remote training, PPE equipment, you name it. We're trying to kind of really be careful, but also to try and enumerate as best as possible those folks who are sleeping outside. As Judy said, I think we all expect to find more folks outside than ever before. And so almost more than ever, it's important that these teams do as good a job as possible at counting the folks that we can find out there. So that will occur, assuming there's no snow or ice, on Thursday night, January 21st. Thanks.
All right, any questions for Susie? All right, we will move on then. Heather Dillashaw, thanks for joining us again. You want to give us an update today?
I do. Stephanie, can you give me the whatever it's called so I can share my screen? Okay, can you see this graphic? Everybody see it?
Yeah.
Yep, okay. This isn't technology is not my strong suit, so I never know if you're looking at what I'm looking at or not. So this is data that was pulled just a few days ago. We shared this with the Rapid Rehousing Working Group. This is specific to the CARES Act ESG dollars. So there are other rapid rehousing dollars, and there's more people being served and housed than but this is the majority of it. So we thought we would show today just the scope of what is already happening with the ESG CARES dollars that are just starting to flow. So our goal was that we would try and serve those who are most vulnerable, right? So to what Susie just said and Judy was saying about the folks who are living outside, we know that those that are chronically homeless and most vulnerable are generally those folks who are living outside as well. And so we really wanted to try and see if we could use this influx of funding to serve those folks. And so we were really excited to see that when we pulled these numbers that we are, meaning the agencies, the providers, and many of whom are on this call, are really doing an awesome job at focusing on and taking the referrals through coordinated entry that are the folks that really are the most in need of housing and most vulnerable to COVID and a number of other things, right? So far with the people that are enrolled, 35 of those are chronic homeless. So that's really good news. Really reaching those folks. 10 people have already been housed, which is also fantastic. The other piece of that on the housing part is that it's been housed pretty quickly, which is great. The days or less. And most folks, it happened a lot quicker than that, which is fantastic. So I know that there's that perception that it takes really long to get somebody housed. And so while that's true, this is showing that with some really concerted effort, sometimes it doesn't take that long, right? So that's a really great number to look at. And then the length of time homeless prior to housing placement is just, sobering to look at, right? That, 731 or more days for 6 of those who've already been housed, right? So we really are getting at the folks who are the long stayers and who really have been homeless for a long time. So that's the good news. It's definitely sobering to think that that is true for so many of the folks that we are reaching, but it is good news that we are reaching them now. So I wanted to show that, and we can send this. I'll send this to Judy so she can send it out with other materials as well. Rapid rehousing providers have this information already in their slide deck, but I'm happy to add that to what Judy is sending out so you all can see this data look. Any questions about that for the ESG side?
Beth, go ahead.
You're breaking up, Beth. I can't hear you. I can't hear you, Beth. You're breaking up a lot.
Yeah, you're breaking up a lot. You're all garbled.
Hey, Beth, this is Stephanie Judd. You may need to turn off your video if possible to help with the bandwidth.
Okay, it's super that you're getting folks who have been homeless for a long time into housing. That's amazing. How long do those rapid rehousing subsidies last? And what are we doing to try to make sure that those folks don't come back into homelessness? A brief subsidy after 2 years on the streets may not do the trick.
Agreed. It's a great question, Beth. So we are actively working on that. We're looking at adding additional vouchers through MDHA that will be dedicated to folks who are experiencing homelessness. There are existing vouchers. I might get this number wrong, but I think it's 18 a month. Is that right, Susie and Judy? It's 18, right, that we have right now? Yeah. So right now there are 18 a month dedicated. So those are also already in play. And so we are actively looking at how that operates. The length of time will be dependent on each individual, right? So the hard job for agencies is trying to project those budgets, right? And I know April's not on camera, but I'm sure she's nodding her head vigorously about this. It's hard to project what each individual needs, but the important part of success here is that each case management plan is individualized, right? And so it varies from household to household. What we're looking at right now really is a minimum of 6 months and the maximum is 12 months with these funds. But all the agencies right now are planning on a minimum of 6 months and then going from there. Some of that, for some folks, that will mean like a step down, meaning they won't get cut off completely at 6 months with rental assistance, but try to start stepping into paying part of their rent. Some of those folks may move to a voucher before that 6 months even happens, because it's evident more quickly that they're going to need longer term subsidy, and so they'll get moved to a voucher before that. So it really varies, but we really are looking at all those scenarios to make sure that this is sustainable far beyond these initial pieces. And so the intent of the housing surge really is to do that initial stability that is incredibly critical for folks who are in these vulnerable situations to get on the road to longer term stability.
These RRH subsidies to bridge to housing vouchers, to longer term subsidies for the folks that need them. That's exactly what should be doing. So that's super.
It is that. I mean, I agree. That's definitely, we've seen that be successful in multiple communities, and is one of the key strategies in really having a large impact in reducing numbers of homelessness and recidivism. Right. So it's a huge key in the toolbox that we're able to finally put into play in Nashville.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else have questions or comments for Heather?
I will say the other piece, this is, I mean, it's not specific for ESG, but for the third round of CDBG CV funds, we started initial conversations with potential developers to do acquisition and rehab for permanent supportive housing. That is an eligible activity for CDBG funds. And so that would also increase permanent units for PSH. And there are a number of ways that rental assistance could come into play in those units. So I've had several follow-up questions from developers that we're going to be following up on, and Treva and I are working on a PSH 101 for developers with CDBG that's hopefully going to happen next week. So I think that would be another big win for y'all. You have very few dedicated PSH units, and to be able to put that into your stock would be a game changer as well. So hopefully, I feel really good about that. The developers that are interested have really strong relationships also with some of the nonprofits on this call and others that really are working with folks who would need these units. So I think there's some really strong possibilities there, and it may come down to just who has the best application to make that work, which is a good place to be, right? So I feel really good about that process as well. That will take longer. It's not as quick of a process. Obviously, acquisition and development and CDBG dollars for that that's a longer process because there's environmental reviews, because it's a built project, those kinds of things. But I do feel good about that potentially coming online over the next 12 to 18 months as well.
Awesome. Thank you again for your update, Heather. Anything else for Heather? Anyone? All right. Thank you again. Let's move on. And anything else? Nope. Okay. Moving into our committee and strategic plan updates. Laura Bermudez, would you give out a report on executive committee?
Sure. It's not a whole lot more to report on other than progress on getting the resource development committee up and running. So thank you to everybody who has recommended individuals to be on that committee. We've got a great list. I'm really excited about the people that we've identified. We have approval from our executive committee on that list, and are starting to reach out to those individuals to invite them to serve on the committee, and just start the process of getting that stood up. So more to come, but I'm feeling good about us getting that group up and running at the beginning of the year. And Judy, is there anything else that you would add?
No, I just want to thank Laura for keeping us in the executive committee, especially really getting us focused on the strategic plan, on those monthly reports. She and I are checking in regularly to really orient all we do within the strategic plan and then update that accordingly to what needs to be done. So thank you, Laura. I don't know how to stay focused on that without you right now. So thank you so much. This is really going to make a difference for the Homelessness Planning Council.
Thank you, Judy. Happy to be the taskmaster.
Yes, I actually want to say I appreciate that as well, Laura, keeping us focused and where we're supposed to be going. It's not an easy task to herd all of us. I appreciate that too. Freddie, you have your hand raised over there. Do you have a question or have you already? No problem. Okay. All right. Our tax referendum ad hoc committee. Did we have a report from them, Judy?
This is Mark. I can report out. We've had one meeting or maybe two meetings, and we've been assembling some talking points. It's interesting. Jeff brought up the problem we face with advocating against a tax referendum, partly because, in other words, we want to be sensitive to both sides of the issue when whatever document we put out. The tax referendum, if it went into effect, obviously would have deleterious effects metro-wide. But so all of us who live in Metro, to the extent we own property, just got our big tax bills. So that means that for people who actually rent property, the rental charge may have to go up to accommodate the tax increase. So Jeff pointed out, and I think correctly, that some people living on the edge, barely making the rent, and now it's going to go up. So maybe the tax referendum would have been a solution to that problem. So we just wanted to be sensitive to that. Other than that, the fact that the Homeless Impact Division will lose half their budget was just a dramatic talking point. So, and the other problem we learned as soon as the referendum was announced, the Metro Finance Department issued two notices, as we understand it, one to the Homeless Impact Division on the grants that are outstanding, for example, the Centerstone, and then later in the day said, okay, we're not going to terminate anything. We just wanted to give you a heads up. So what that meant for those providers was that social workers, for example, that work for Centerstone suddenly realized they might be out of a job in a couple of months. And so not only did they stop taking new clients, they started losing staff. So these are the kinds of talking points we're putting together, and we should have something to everybody in the next couple of weeks. We have a meeting next week. So sorry, no formal report. We're still sort of brainstorming on it, but a lot of good debate. Thanks.
All right, Mark, thank you very much for that, and I appreciate all of that input, and those are all things that have to be considered as we decide how we want to respond to the potential reconstituted referendum that we all are expecting to come. So if you all have any thoughts or questions for Mark and that committee, please send them to Judy. Judy will get them to Mark and the committee for consideration. And we're going to move on. Shelter Committee, Kathy Jennings, are you with us this morning?
I do not see Kathy on here. I texted her and tried to call her. I can't reach her. So let me just, the main thing is to really fill everybody in. There's a new nonprofit organization called Nashville Homeless Connect. They are launching next week a 90-day trial. It's a transportation nonprofit. They're doing a pilot program for 90 days. It's going to be self-funded by the founder of the nonprofit. He's already has experience working in transportation around people with disabilities and seniors, and has like to try to model what can happen to have two vans on the ground, free rides for people experiencing homelessness. He is working, and we have been able to coordinate with them to identify a lot of nonprofits that need this information, where the pilot stops are in and around the downtown area. You will get a flyer once that's finalized, and once we have more specific information where those stops are, we will share that with the Homelessness Planning Council. Tomorrow we have another call, and I set it up with a whole lot of nonprofits to get the information. So once the pilot is up and running, that they can help inform the people experiencing homelessness what this is. So basically, I apologize. They're going to run a transportation service with two vans set up around in the rotation. They're going to have an app, and it's going to run from 7 a.m. to midnight every day for 90 days, and then they evaluate what needs to happen, how does the funding work, and all of that. So they really have included, again, agencies for input, and are staying in touch with the agencies to make this work. More information to come, but that could be a huge opportunity for us here in Nashville to fill a gap.
All right, does anyone have any specific questions around that? I think it's an incredibly exciting possibility, and I'm hoping that it is incredibly successful and it will be able to continue after the pilot is starting. All right. Seeing no further questions around that, I think it is time to move on. I don't see Hannah Davis on the call today. Do we have an update from Mayor's office or anything? Does anyone know?
No, I do not at this point. If you have any questions, please direct them to me, and I'll make sure I get the answer from the Mayor's office. Hannah Davis is going to be on maternity leave, but we are figuring out together. So with Heather and me are keeping the Mayor's office informed on the high level. So until we have, just keep me as the contact in the loop until Hannah is back.
All right, well, tell her it's all virtual anyway. She can join us, just have the baby right there beside her. I don't know. Well, good for her. I actually did not know that, so hope she's well. All right, so that actually, we went from being a little bit behind schedule to being way ahead of schedule. So thank you all very much for your concise reports. Do we have any other business that we need to discuss today? Go ahead, Freddie.
I did want to remind people that the Homeless Memorial is coming up on December 19th. So mark your calendar.
Oh, you took those words right out of my mouth, Freddie. Yes, the Homeless Memorial will be on December 19th, right? December 19th this year, 10 a.m. It will be live streamed via Facebook Live from Riverfront Park. So please do not show up at Riverfront Park. We are trying to keep the number of people who are actually there to a bare minimum, because we want to make sure that we are socially distancing and abiding by Metro's rules around gathering. So I do want you all to join us via Facebook Live. It's at 10 a.m. On the 19th, but please do not show up at Riverfront Park unless you have been asked to come there to speak specifically. We're going to try to make sure that we don't gather in ways that are not safe for folks. We are being very cognizant of that. So, but I do want you all to please join us and spread the word and get other people to join us as well. We'd like to have a good group of people there participating with us, even though it is virtual this year. Any other announcements or other business that we need to discuss?
Only thing is, I agree with Paula. As safe as this is, we can more people participate. And I think especially given the challenges of 2020 and COVID, it'd be great to see people recognizing that vulnerability is still something that affects us. This is not new in a year with COVID, and so take a moment, pause, and reflect on challenges that will persist even after we have made progress in combating COVID.
That is correct. Thank you, Freddie, very much. Anything else from anyone? Well, this was probably one of the most efficient meetings we've had in a long time. So I will say to each one of you that I miss you. I wish that we were being able to be in the same space together, but hopefully that time will come again as we continue to all try to stay safe and do the things that we need to do. I wish you all a very happy and healthy holiday season. Please stay safe. If you are going to gather with family, please do so as safely as you possibly can. Wear your masks. Keep your distance, get tested, make sure that you are doing all those things to keep you and your family safe throughout the holidays. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Paula.
You're welcome.
This is Mark. I move we adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right,
all in favor?
All in favor, please log off as your vote. I appreciate it. Goodbye, everyone.
Hey, goodbye, everyone.
Bye, thank
Bye.
you.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
See you, Wendell.
Thank you.